In a small town, a scandal erupted when a rare antique item, a clock from the 19th century, was stolen from the local museum. The museum was the pride of the town, and the news of the theft quickly spread across the local newspapers. Detective Emily Johnson, an experienced specialist in recovering missing pieces of art, was assigned to investigate the case. That evening, she met with her partner Mark at a café to discuss their next steps. Mark, Emily began outlining her thoughts. We need to find out who was the last in the museum before the theft. Do we have any security camera footage? Let's check, Mark replied, pulling out a notebook. I've already compiled a list of witnesses. Some of them will need serious help to recall the details. The next day they visited the museum where they met with the curator Sarah. I can't believe this happening in our museum, she explained, barely holding back tears. Those clothes hold the entire history of our town. We'll do our best to recover them, Emily reassured her. Please tell us who was near the museum the day before the theft. Sarah thought for a moment before speaking. I remember seeing a man standing by the window for a long time. He looked out of place like he was waiting for someone, but I don't know who he was. Can you describe him? Emily asked. He was tall, had dark hair, and was wearing a black jacket. He didn't seem like a local. Emily took notes and asked a few more questions before they left the museum. In the evening, they gathered with local residents in the cafe and began interviewing witnesses. During the conversation, one of the patrons, Tom, recognized a man in a photograph. This guy is Ruslan. I saw him in the bar a few days ago. He was talking about wanting to acquire antiques to sell them abroad, Tom shared. Smith? Emily clarified, listening intently. Yeah, that's him. He's been hanging around lately, Tom replied. With this new information, the detectives began their search for Ruslan. Over the next few days, they checked bars and cafes, asking waiters and customers about him. Eventually, they found out that Ruslan had been seen meeting with the person who often buys antiques. It looked like we have a new lead, Emily said with pride. The next day, they set out to meet this person named Pete. He turned out to be the owner of an antique shop on the outskirts of town. I don't know anything about the theft, Pete began when the detectives inquired about Ruslan. But he did come to me a couple of days ago. He was looking for bars for some old clocks. Where is he now? Emily asked. He said he was headed to Forest Town, Pete replied. Not wasting any time, the detective decided to drive there. Upon arrival, they asked locals and the security team if anyone had seen Ruslan. To their surprise, they learned he had been spotted in an abandoned building. Emily and Mark rushed to the location and as they approached the entrance, stopped to listen. Do you hear that? Emily whispered, catching the sound of ticking clocks. Let's go in, Mark suggested, pulling out his flashlight. They cautiously entered the building and followed the sound, discovering Ruslan with the clock on a table. He was attempting to disassemble it. Ruslan, shouted Emily, running toward him. You are surrounded. As he looked at them and realized there was no escape, he tried to run, but Mark quickly apprehended him. You are not getting away now, Mark said, holding him tightly. Later in the police department, Ruslan confessed that he had stolen the clock, hoping to sell it to black market collectors. Photos and fingerprints were sent to court for case preparation. A few weeks after the clock's return to the museum, Emily and Mark attended the opening of an exhibition dedicated to the restoration of the antique collection. Thank you for bringing back the clock, Sarah expressed her gratitude to the detectives. We are all very grateful to you. For us it was an important job, Emily replied with a smile. The main thing is to preserve our town's history.